himmlischer Vater.
Lord, thank you for this new day.
Herr, danke für diesen neuen Tag.
Thank you that we can come once again to open your word.
Danke, dass wir wieder kommen dürfen, um dein Wort zu öffnen.
And Lord, we know that your thoughts are not our thoughts.
Und Herr, wir wissen, dass deine Gedanken nicht unsere Gedanken
So
sind.
we ask and pray that you would give us the Holy Spirit.
Deswegen bitten und beten wir, dass du uns den Heiligen Geist gibst,
You would teach us your word.
dass du uns dein Wort lehrst
And it would do its work of convicting us of sin
und dass es sein Werk tut, uns von der Sünde zu überführen
and to teach us the plan of salvation.
und dass er uns den Erlösungsplan lehrt
And that we would have the revelation of Jesus Christ.
und dass wir die Offenbarung Jesu Christi haben
So
werden.
please bless Brother Mark as he lays out your word.
Bitte segne Bruder Mark, wenn er dein Wort auslegt.
And please bless us here that are receiving it.
Und bitte segne uns hier, die wir es erhalten.
Help us to be attentive
Hilf uns, dass wir aufmerksam sind
and remind us of all the things that you've taught us before.
und erinnere uns an all die Dinge, die du uns zuvor gelehrt hast.
And help us to bring these things together, that they would make sense in our minds.
Und hilf, dass wir sie zusammenbringen, damit sie in unserem Verstand Sinn machen.
Please bless the translation.
Bitte segne die Übersetzung
Please bless the technique
und auch die Technik
and all of our brothers and sisters that are watching.
und auch all die Geschwister, die zuschauen.
And we thank you in Jesus' name.
Und wir danken dir in Jesu Namen.
Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so if we go to our notes,
Gehen wir zu unseren Notizen.
and this morning I want to look at the second half of Matthew, Mark and Luke.
Heute Morgen wollen wir uns die zweite Hälfte von Matthäus, Markus und Lukas anschauen.
So during the camp meeting or the weekend seminar there we were looking at this.
Und während des Camp-Meetings beim Wochenendseminar hatten wir uns das schon angeschaut.
Okay, so Jesus leaves the temple here, right?
Also Jesus verlässt hier den Tempel.
And it's the close of probation.
Es ist das Ende der Gnadenzeit.
Okay, and it marks the destruction of Jerusalem.
Und es markiert die Zerstörung von Jerusalem.
Right, and if we just go, turn your Bibles to Joel
Gehen wir in unseren Bibeln zu Joel,
chapter 2.
Joel Kapitel 2.
And verse 9 through 11.
Verse 9 bis 11.
It says, "They shall run to and fro in the city, they shall run upon the wall, they shall climb upon the houses, they shall enter in the windows like a thief." Who is this?
Wer ist das?
Yeah, it's the northern army, right? This false northern king, right?
Diese Nordarmee, dieser falsche.
This is the destruction of Jerusalem.
Das
Right?
ist die Zerstörung von Jerusalem.
It says, "The earth shall quake before them, the heavens shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shine." So what's happening when it's destroying Jerusalem?
Was geschieht, wenn Jerusalem zerstört wird?
Shaking of the heavens and the earth, right?
Erschütterung von Himmel und Erde.
"And the Lord shall utter his voice before his army, for his camp is very great, for he is strong that executeth his word. For the day of the Lord is great and very terrible, who can abide it?" The day of the Lord, right?
Das ist der Tag des Herrn.
Which is the second coming,
Das ist die Wiederkunft.
right? Okay, so, and just to remind you this point, go to Luke 21.
Um euch an den Punkt zu erinnern, gehen wir zu Lukas 21,
Verse 11,
Vers 11.
in fact, verse 10.
Also wir fangen doch in Vers 10 an.
It says, "Then he said unto them, Nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and great earthquakes shall be in divers places, and famines, and pestilence, and fearful signs, and great signs there shall be from heaven." Right? It says, "But before all these, before the shaking of the heavens and the earth," right?
Vor der Erschütterung von Himmel und Erde.
"They shall lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to synagogues and into prisons, being brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake, and it shall turn to you for a testimony." Right? Which is right here, right?
Also das Zeugnis, das ist hier.
Okay? So you get delivered up. So before the shaking of the heavens and the earth, they're going to deliver you up, right?
Also vor der Erschütterung von Himmel und Erde werden sie dich ausliefern.
Okay, so before the false king of the north comes to destroy Jerusalem, which is typifying the day of the Lord,
Bevor der falsche König des Nordens kommt, um Jerusalem zu zerstören, was den Tag des Herrn vorausschattet,
okay, they will deliver you up. This was the point that Christ wanted them to see,
dann
right?
werden sie dich ausliefern. Und das war der Punkt, den Christus wollte, dass wir sehen,
Where they would have to give witness,
wo sie ein Zeugnis geben müssen.
right? And that's what we were looking at, right?
Das hatten wir uns hier angeschaut.
Then shall the end come,
Und
right?
dann wird das Ende kommen.
So those that endure in this time period to the end, the same shall be saved.
Also diejenigen, die in dieser Zeitspanne bis zum Ende ausharren, dieselben werden gerettet werden.
Okay, so the first half, right, at this point here is just typifying that's going to lead you down to the second half, right?
Also diese erste Hälfte, das hat einfach nur vorausgeschattet, was dann in der zweiten Hälfte passiert, und das führt dich dann dahin und
To the literal day of the Lord when Christ comes, right?
bis zum buchstäblichen Tag des Herrn, wenn Christus kommt.
Because this 7 plagues here is being typified in here, right?
Weil diese 7 Plagen werden hier drin vorausgeschattet.
So the day of the Lord when Christ comes is typified there by the false king of the north when he executes judgment upon Jerusalem.
Also der Tag des Herrn, wenn Christus kommt, wird hier vorausgeschattet durch den falschen König des Nordens, wenn er das Gericht über Jerusalem ausübt.
Okay, so we put this in place, so the first half, right?
Das hatten wir an Platz gesetzt, also die erste Hälfte.
So we want to now look at the second half, which is in one sense here, but like we say, it's also here,
Jetzt
right?
wollen wir uns die zweite Hälfte anschauen, und die ist in einem Sinne hier, aber wie wir gesagt haben, ist sie eben auch hier.
Okay, so we want to lay that on top,
Wir
right?
wollen das jetzt darüber legen.
So let's go to the notes.
Gehen wir zu den Notizen.
Matthew 24 verses 15 and 16.
Matthäus 24, Verse 15 bis 16.
It says, "When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand." Okay, so verse 15, where does it take you to?
Wohin bringt dich Vers 15?
No, mind.
Okay.
Just where does it take you to?
Wohin bringt dich
In this verse.
So in diesem Vers.
Daniel 11.
Yeah, it takes you to the book of Daniel, right? To Daniel 11 verse 31, right?
Nämlich zum Buch Daniel, Daniel 11, Vers 31.
Okay, which is the beginning of the
Das
1260,
ist der
right?
Anfang der 1260.
Okay, so let's put that here, right?
Schreiben wir das hier hin.
So this 1260 here, which is a type of the 7 plagues, is typifying this, right?
Diese 1260, was ein Typus für die 7 Plagen ist, schaltet eben das hier voraus.
So there's the point. The beginning of the Sunday law is what they're pointing to,
Das
right?
ist eben der Anfang des Sonntagsgesetzes, darauf weisen sie hier hin.
Okay, so in verse 16,
Vers 16.
then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains, right? So go to the first quote.
Gehen wir zum ersten Zitat.
The time is not far distant when, like the early disciples, we shall be forced to seek a refuge in desolate and solitary places. As the siege of Jerusalem by the Roman armies was the signal for flight to the Judean Christians, so the presumption of power on the part of our nation in the decree enforcing the papal Sabbath will be a warning to us. It will then be time to leave the large cities preparatory to leaving the smaller ones for retired homes in secluded places among the mountains, right? So, not for those giving the message, but for those receiving the message, right?
Das ist jetzt nicht für diejenigen, die die Botschaft geben, sondern diejenigen, die die Botschaft erhalten.
Okay, so we'll, the people that are coming forward here giving the message, they're already out those cities,
Die
right?
Leute, die hier vorwärts gehen und die Botschaft verkünden, sie sind schon aus den Städten rausgekommen.
Okay, so here you're getting out of the cities, but here when it says flee into the mountains, you're literally fleeing to the mountains, right?
Also hier kommst du aus den Städten, aber wenn es hier sagt, flieht auf die Berge, da fließt du eben buchstäblich auf die Berge.
Right?
Richtig?
So the point is that it's marking the beginning and the end,
Der
right?
Punkt ist, das markiert den Anfang und das Ende.
And it's purposeful that way, right?
Das ist so absichtlich so.
So go to Matthew 24, verse 17.
Gehen wir jetzt zu Matthäus 24, Vers 17.
It says, "Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house, neither let him that is in the field return back to take his clothes. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day, for then shall be great tribulation." So we understand that the great tribulation, right, is this pagan, it's if I just put that there now, it's actually the Great Tribulation would be the 1260 here, because it says that we read this quote, it says it's pagan and papal, right?
Also die große Trübsal wäre dann hier drin, weil wir haben einmal dieses Zitat gelesen, wo es sagt, das ist heidnisch und päpstlich.
Okay, which is in agreement, because you have Babylon, or you have the lion, the bear, the leopard, and then the fourth beast is the two-horned power, right?
Und das wäre in Übereinstimmung, weil man hat hier den Löwen, den Bär, den Leoparden und das vierte Tier wäre diese zweihörnige Macht.
And then Daniel 9 also gives you this last week here, right, which is 1260 and 1260.
Und
Right?
Daniel 9 gibt uns hier auch diese letzte Woche, das wäre hier 1260 und hier auch 1260.
Which is pagan and papal, right?
Das wäre heidnisch und päpstlich.
Okay, so anyway, just go back to verse 22.
Gehen wir zurück zu Vers 22.
"And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened." Okay, so the point is that for me, we didn't really grasp that. We put the 1260 there, we had this the point that was being shortened, right?
Also wir hatten das damals nicht so verstanden und haben gesagt, dass das eben die 1260 ist und das wäre dann hier der Punkt, wo es verkürzt ist.
Okay, but when you see this, what I want you to understand, there's the place where he comes to deliver you, right?
Aber wenn man das hier sieht, dann kann man sehen, dass das der Punkt ist, wenn er kommt, um dich zu
Okay,
befreien.
Lawrence was making this point the other day. This is the sign where you're to look up, right?
Und Lorenz hat den Punkt vor ein paar Tagen gemacht, dass das hier das Zeichen ist, wo du aufschauen
Now,
sollst.
it's still a bit of a puzzle, this, right? And we got to work it out, but we'll just work our way through it, right?
Das ist immer noch ein Puzzle und wir müssen das eben herausarbeiten, aber wir werden jetzt da einfach durchgehen.
So it says, "And except those days should be short, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ." So when you come to this point here, what are they saying?
Wenn du zu dem Punkt ankommst, was sagen sie?
Yeah, these false prophets, it's the Omega apostasy, right?
Also die falschen Propheten sagen, ich bin Christus, das ist der Omega-Abfall.
It says, "Lo, here is Christ, or there believe it not, for there shall arise false Christs, false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect." Right? So, go to Matthew 24 in your Bible.
Geht in euren Bibeln zu Matthäus
I
24.
just want to show you this before we read these quotes.
Ich will euch das noch zeigen, bevor wir die Zitate lesen.
So, in the first half,
Also in der ersten Hälfte,
okay, in verse 8,
Vers 8.
it says, "All these are the beginning of sorrows."
All dies ist der Anfang der Wehen.
Speaking about the shaking of the angry nations,
Er
right?
spricht über die Erschütterung der zornigen
He's saying
Nationen.
all this has got to happen first,
Er
right?
sagt, all das muss zuerst geschehen.
Verse 9.
Und dann Vers
It
9.
says, "Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you." And this brings you down to this point that we were making, right?
Also Vers 9 bringt uns dann zu dem Punkt hinunter, den wir vorhin gemacht haben.
It says, "And shall deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake, and then shall many be offended." right?
Dann werden viele anstoßen.
And shall betray one another and shall hate one another, and many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. Where's the false prophets arising?
Also bis Vers 11, wo kommen die falschen Propheten auf?
Same point, right?
An demselben Punkt.
Okay, now let's go to the next quote.
Gehen wir zum nächsten Zitat.
It says, "The people of God should carefully study the words of Christ concerning these last days. Why is it that people of God do not read and understand the specifications concerning the dangers that will surely come? Why is it that they rush on blindfolded, receiving messages that are not true? With prophetic eye, Christ looked down the stream of time to the very end of earth's history and marked out with prophetic pencil the very things that would take place in these last days. He lifted the danger signal and declared, 'There shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect.'" Okay, that's what we read in Luke in our notes, right?
Haben wir in unseren Notizen gelesen.
In Matthew 24, right?
Matthäus 24.
Speaking about the second half, right?
Spricht über die zweite Hälfte.
Yes?
Ja.
Okay. But then it goes on.
Jetzt geht es aber weiter.
"Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he's in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he's in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even to the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be." So these false prophets are going to rise up and tell you that Christ has come, right?
Diese falschen Propheten werden aufstehen und dir sagen, dass Christus gekommen ist.
But he tells you, can't be, right? But you've got to look for the true sign, right?
Aber er sagt dir, das kann nicht sein, du musst nach dem wahren Zeichen Ausschau
In
halten.
the next paragraph, she links together the first half, right?
Und im nächsten Absatz, da verbindet sie die erste Hälfte damit zusammen.
"And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another, and many false prophets shall arise and deceive many." You see that?
Könnt ihr es sehen?
So she takes the group of false prophets in the first half, and this ones that deceive the very elect in the second half, and binds them together,
Also
right?
sie nimmt die erste Gruppe der falschen Propheten in der ersten Hälfte und diejenigen, die die Auserwählten in der zweiten Hälfte verführen, und sie bringt es zusammen.
Okay, so really, just really confirming this point, this is where you're going to be delivered up and give witness,
Und
right?
das ist dann wirklich dieser Punkt, wo du ausgeliefert wirst und ein Zeugnis geben sollst.
And where these false prophets will rise up,
Wo
right?
diese falschen Propheten aufstehen werden.
Okay, go to the next quote. It's
Gehen
just
wir
another
zum nächsten
confirmation.
Zitat.
right?
Das ist eine weitere Bestätigung.
He declared, "There shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect." So there's the group in the second half, right?
Da ist diese Gruppe jetzt in der zweiten Hälfte.
Okay. It says, "Behold, I have told you before, wherefore if they shall say unto you, Behold, he's in the desert, go not forth, behold, he's in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even to the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another, and many false prophets shall arise and deceive many." See it?
Könnt ihr es sehen?
Right. Okay. So, go back to Matthew 24 now.
Geht jetzt zurück zu Matthäus 24.
Okay, so I believe that this is like a huge puzzle that's in here, right?
Und ich glaube, dass da wirklich ein riesiges Puzzle ist, was hier drin ist.
Okay, so I'm just, but for the moment, I'm just trying to keep it in this, because the first half, they ask when the end of the world is,
In
right?
der ersten Hälfte fragen sie ja, wann ist das Ende der Welt?
And for them, the end of the world was the destruction of Jerusalem.
Und für sie war das Ende der Welt die Zerstörung von Jerusalem.
Okay, and now that also takes place at the second coming of Christ,
Und das
right?
findet auch an der Wiederkunft Christi statt.
So it's here, but it's here first by the false king of the north, right?
Also es ist hier, aber es ist auch hier zuerst durch den falschen König des
Okay,
Nordens.
so both those ends are both pointing to the destruction of Jerusalem, right?
Also beide diese Enden deuten auf die Zerstörung von Jerusalem hin.
Okay, but it must be prefigured by the false king of the north first.
Aber das muss durch den falschen König des Nordens zuerst vorausgeschaltet
And they
werden.
wanted to know when this is, but he says, don't be deceived, because they'll try and tell you that it's going to come here first, right?
Sie wollten wissen, wann das ist, aber er hat ihnen gesagt, werdet nicht verführt, weil sie werden sagen, dass es hier schon kommt.
Okay? And then, at this little box, they're going to try and deceive you that it's going to come here, right?
Und in dieser kleinen Box werden sie dich versuchen zu verführen, dass es schon hier gekommen ist.
Okay, and these are these 2 points that he's warning you about. But when you come to this point, then you can know that it's near, right? Even at the doors, right?
Das sind diese 2 Punkte, wenn sie aufkommen werden. Aber wenn du zu diesem Punkt kommst, dann weißt du, dass es nahe ist. Es ist schon vor der Tür.
Okay. So if we Matthew 24, verse 25.
Matthäus 24, Vers 25.
Okay, it just brings you to this same point.
Das bringt dich zum selben Punkt.
Behold, I have told you before, wherefore if they shall say unto you, behold, he is in the desert, go not forth, behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Just ignore that heading in there, that shouldn't be there.
Also ignoriert die Überschrift in den Notizen.
It says, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give a light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. Now, this has always been a bit of a point of contention for us to understand, right?
Das war für uns immer ein Streitpunkt, den wir verstehen wollten.
Okay, but for me, now at least, I'm positive it's pointing to this point, right? That's why he's saying, for as lightning cometh out of the east and to the west, and now he's going to explain to you this point, right?
Also ich zumindest bin also sicher, dass es über diesen Punkt spricht. Und weil er sagt dann, also wie der Blitz vom Osten bis zum Westen scheint, und dann erklärt er, was dort passieren wird.
So immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give a light, the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. Right? So it's just bringing you, taking the shaking of the heavens and the earth in the first half, right, that would be here, and now putting this on top of it.
Es
Right?
bringt jetzt einfach die Erschütterung von Himmel und Erde in der ersten Hälfte, die hier wäre, und bringt es dann übereinander.
Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. This is when he's right there in front of you, right?
Das ist, wenn er gerade da ist, also gerade vor dir.
And shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory, and he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet. Okay? And this is, if you just go to Matthew 25, right?
Und geht zu Matthäus 25.
Because Matthew 25 and Matthew 24, they're both the same parable,
Bei
right?
Matthäus 24 und Matthäus 25 ist beides dasselbe Gleichnis.
And verse 31, it just confirms this, right?
Und Vers 31, da bestätigt es das.
It says, when the Son of Man shall come in his glory. What does it say?
Was sagt es?
When he comes, right?
Wenn kommt.
Okay. And it says, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Right, then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you for the foundation of the world. Right, and this is what's happening here in Matthew 24.
Und das geschieht hier in Matthäus 24,
Okay, verse 30.
Vers 30.
And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. This is this last trump.
Das ist diese letzte Posaune.
And they shall gather together as elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. That's these two classes, right? Satan takes his, Christ takes his.
Das sind diese zwei Klassen. Satan nimmt seine und Christus nimmt seine.
Okay. Okay, now go back to Luke 21.
Gehen wir jetzt zurück zu Lukas 21.
Okay, so this is us now back. This is us now the second half of Luke, right?
Das wäre jetzt die zweite Hälfte von Lukas.
And it begins in verse 20.
Es fängt
Right?
in Vers 20 an.
It says, "And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains." Okay? Now, that's also marking this point,
Das
right?
markiert auch diesen Punkt.
But what I want you to see, that it's more so marking this point,
Aber
right?
was ich euch zeigen möchte, ist, dass es eben noch mehr diesen Punkt
Just like Matthew 24 tells you to flee here, right?
So wie Matthäus 24, der sagt, dass du hier fliehen sollst.
Okay, but it's also pointed to the end. I want to show you this.
Aber es bedeutet, also weist dich auch auf das Ende hin. Das möchte ich euch jetzt zeigen.
Okay. Because if you go to the next quote,
Geht zum nächsten Zitat.
now just remember, this is this, right?
Und denkt einfach daran, dass das hier auch das hier ist.
So this beginning here of this is this beginning here, right?
Also dieser Anfang von dem ist auch dieser Anfang hier.
So this beginning here is the end of this,
Also dieser Anfang hier ist das Ende von dem hier.
right? So there's no problem. It's at the end and it's at the beginning,
Es ist
right?
also kein Problem, es ist am Ende und es ist am Anfang.
You need to get that point, right?
Ihr müsst diesen Punkt
So
verstehen.
we were just to follow it down in the natural order. It's here when he says that you've got to flee,
Wenn wir
right?
das einfach in dieser natürlichen Reihenfolge betrachten, dann ist es eben dieser Punkt, wo du fliehen sollst.
So we're just taking this in a type and placing it here,
Wir
right?
nehmen das jetzt einfach im Typus und setzen es hier hin.
Okay, so it says here in this quote,
In dem Zitat sagt es,
"And many false prophets shall arise and deceive many. False Christ did rise, deceiving the people and leading great numbers into the desert. Magicians and sorcerers, claiming miraculous power, drew the people after them into the mountain solitudes. But this prophecy was spoken also for the last days. The sign is given as a sign of the second advent." Right? This was the point that they were asking about, right?
das war der Punkt, nach dem sie gefragt haben.
And he brought them to this point right here.
Er hat sie zu diesem Punkt hier geführt.
He says, these things must first come to pass.
Er hat gesagt, diese Dinge müssen zuerst geschehen.
And the shaking of the heavens and the earth is here.
Die Erschütterung von Himmel und Erde ist hier.
But before this, they must do this, right?
Aber bevor dem müssen sie das hier tun.
And it says, this sign is given as a sign of the second advent. This is, when you see this, it's near even at the doors, right?
Dieses Zeichen wurde ein Zeichen von der Wiederkunft gegeben. Also wenn du das hier siehst, dann ist es nahe vor der Tür.
It's our sign, right?
Das ist unser
Because
Zeichen.
they're asking for a sign, and this is the sign that he's pointing us to. This right here.
Sie fragen nach einem Zeichen und das ist eben das Zeichen, auf das es hindeutet.
No point giving you the sign when Christ is right there, right?
Also es
It's too late for a sign, right?
macht ja keinen Sinn, wenn das Zeichen kommt, wenn Christus da ist, dann wäre es schon zu spät für ein Zeichen.
Okay. Okay, so go to the next quote.
Gehen wir zum nächsten Zitat.
Okay, and it's one that we're very familiar with from great controversy.
Das ist eines, mit dem wir sehr vertraut sind, vom großen Kampf.
It says, "Not one Christian perished in the destruction of Jerusalem. Christ had given his disciples warning, and all who believed his words watched for the promised sign. When ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, said Jesus, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out." After the Romans under Cestes had surrounded the city. That's the Sunday law, right?
Das ist das Sonntagsgesetz.
Yes. This was their sign, right?
Das war ihr Zeichen.
Could they flee?
Konnten sie fliehen?
Could they?
Yes. Yes.
No.
Nein.
Just let's read it, right?
Lesen wir das?
It says, after the Romans,
He retreats.
yeah, so they couldn't get away, right?
Also sie konnten erst nicht wegkommen, erst als er weggezogen ist.
After the Romans under Cestus had surrounded the city, they unexpectedly abandoned the siege when everything seemed favourable for an immediate attack. The besieged, despairing of successful resistance, were on the point of surrender when the Roman general withdrew his forces without the least apparent reason. Right? Okay, so this was their opportunity to flee.
Das
Right.
war jetzt ihre Möglichkeit zu fliehen.
And this is the next paragraph.
Und beim nächsten Absatz,
What has taken place?
was findet statt?
It says, the Jewish forces pursuing after Cestus and his army fell upon their rear with such fierceness as to threaten them with total destruction. What is this?
Was ist das?
Before this tries to
Right, okay, so
with their own strength. to
yeah, it's
against their
the
own-
Pharisee, right, fighting against Rome and his own strength,
Also
right?
der Pharisäer, der in eigener Kraft gegen Rom kämpft.
Okay, so, and then you come to the next paragraph.
Gehen wir zum nächsten Absatz.
Terrible were the calamities that fell upon Jerusalem when the siege was resumed by Titus, right? Okay, so, and this would be right here, right?
Das wäre dann hier.
Okay. It says the city was invested at the time of the Passover when millions of Jews were assembled within its walls. Now I wonder about this, whether it's actually marking the very end, you know, when Titus comes, because when Titus comes, nobody could escape, right?
Ich frage mich, ob das vielleicht nicht hier ganz am Ende ist, wenn Titus kommt, weil als er kam, konnte niemand mehr fliehen.
Yeah, I need to look at that more, but
Ich muss das noch mehr anschauen.
okay, because it would make sense that when you take this quote, right, here they come, right, but it would be here where they're fighting against the Romans in their own strength. That's in agreement with the publican or the Pharisee and the parable between the publican and the Pharisee.
Also wenn man dieses Zitat nimmt, dann wäre es hier, wenn er kommt, aber dann hier wäre das, wenn der Pharisäer gegen Rom kämpft, weil das ist in Übereinstimmung mit dem Gleichnis des Zöllners und des Pharisäers.
Also in agreement with the other points, this marking, here's where you can flee,
Und
right?
das ist auch in Übereinstimmung mit anderen Punkten, dass es diesen Punkt markiert, wenn du fliehen
But we
kannst.
need to look at this point a bit more,
Aber
right?
diesen Punkt müssen wir uns noch mehr anschauen.
But go to the next quote, we'll bring some clarity to this.
Gehen wir jetzt aber zum nächsten Zitat, dort wird es noch klarer werden.
It says, Christ gave his disciples a sign of the ruin to come on Jerusalem, and he told them how to escape. When ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto, for these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. This warning was given to be heeded 40 years at the destruction of Jerusalem. So that's not Cestius, right?
Also das hier ist dann nicht Cestius.
This is at the destruction, right?
Das ist bei der Zerstörung.
40 years. So
Also nach
bringing you down to this point, right?
40 Jahren, das führt dich dann zu diesem Punkt.
Okay, next quote.
Nächstes Zitat.
It says, before the destruction of Sodom, God sent a message to Lot, escape for thy life. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And we know that this is speaking about this time here, right?
Wir wissen, das spricht über diese Zeit hier.
Lot has his experience here. He then gives the last warning message. And when they don't listen, he's then told to flee, right?
Also Lot hat seine Erfahrung hier, und dann wird er gesandt mit der letzten Warnungsbotschaft, und wenn sie nicht hören, wird ihm dann gesagt, dass er fliehen soll.
Okay? It says, neither stay thou in all the plain, escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. The same voice of warning was heard by the disciples of Christ before the destruction of Jerusalem. When ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Right? So several witnesses that point this down to this point.
Also
Right?
es gibt mehrere Zeugen, die dann auf diesen Punkt hier hindeuten.
So, go to the next heading, a way of escape.
Gehen wir zur nächsten Überschrift, einen Ausweg.
So I'm going to give you quite a few things from the Bible now to show that right here, a way of escape is provided of or by the Lord,
Also
right?
ich werde euch jetzt ein paar Bibelverse zeigen, um zu zeigen, dass an diesem Punkt ein Ausweg vom Herrn gegeben wird.
Okay, the more we look at these things, the clearer it will become,
Und
right?
je mehr wir uns die Dinge anschauen, desto klarer wird es werden.
So in 1 Corinthians chapter 10,
1. Korinther 10,
verse 12,
Vers 12.
wherefore let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he what? Fall.
Dass er nicht falle.
Now, where does the falling away come?
Wo kommt das Wegfallen?
This is before the coming of the Lord. This is before the coming of the Lord.
Also vor dem Kommen des Herrn.
Right, so be specific. In this little trial here,
Also
right?
hier in dieser kleinen Prüfung.
Okay, it says, there hath no temptation taken you, but such as in common to man, but God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted. Now, when did the tempter come to Christ?
Wann kam der Versucher zu Christus?
At the end of 40, same point, right?
Am Ende der 40 Tage, am selben Punkt.
Okay, but God is faithful, will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it. Wherefore, my dearly beloved, flee from idolatry. So when the way of escape is open to you, what are you fleeing from?
Wenn der Ausweg dir geöffnet wird, vor was fliehst du?
Idolatry, right?
Vor Götzendienst.
Where are the idols?
Wo sind die Götzen?
In the mind.
In the temple.
In the temple.
Also im Tempel.
Right, it's in the mind, right? But what I'm saying, this is your temple, right?
Also das ist in deinem Verstand, weil das ist dein Tempel.
But the Lord uses that illustration of the temple because He wants you to see the sign, the external,
Aber
right?
der Herr benutzt diese Darstellung des Tempels, damit du das Zeichen, das Externe
So
siehst.
go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2.
Gehen wir zu 2. Thessalonicher 2.
Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first. Brings you back to the same point, right?
Vers 3, das bringt dich zum selben Punkt zurück.
And that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So this is this idolatry, right?
Das ist dieser Götzendienst.
What are you to do when you see this?
Was sollst du tun, wenn du es siehst?
Flee, right?
Fliehen.
Okay. It's just the external marking the internal, right? We're to flee to Christ,
Ist
right?
nur das Externe und das markiert eben das Interne. Wir sollen zu Christus fliehen.
Okay, now go to Isaiah 11,
Gehen wir zu Jesaja 11.
which is marking this new birth.
Das markiert die Neugeburt.
Okay, this chapter speaking about the branch, which was David, right, the son of Jesse.
Dieses Kapitel spricht über den Zweig, der David ist, also der Sohn von Jesse.
It says, and the Lord shall utterly destroy the tongue of the Egyptian sea, and with his mighty wind shall he shake his hand over the river, and shall smite it in the 7 streams, and make men go over dry shod.
Vers 15.
And there shall be a highway for the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, like as it was to Israel in the day that he came up out of the land of Egypt. So where does it take you to?
Wohin bringt dich das?
The Passover, right?
Zum Passe,
When they were coming out of Egypt.
als sie aus Ägypten herauskamen.
Okay, he made the river dry so that they could walk across it,
Er
right?
hat den Fluss trocken gemacht, dass sie da durchgehen konnten.
Okay, and this is Isaiah 45, right?
Das ist auch Jesaja 45,
The day of the Lord,
der Tag des Herrn.
right? The day of the Lord is when the king of the north comes,
Der Tag
right?
des Herrn ist, wenn der König des Nordens kommt.
Okay, and here is Christ, right?
Und das hier ist Christus.
Coming from the east and the north,
Er
right?
kommt vom Osten und vom Norden.
Okay, now he's going to punish Babylon,
Und
right?
jetzt wird er Babylon bestrafen.
It says, thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him. I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the 2-leaved gates, and the gates shall not be shut. But in conjunction with this, what did he do with the water?
Aber im Zusammenhang damit, was hat er mit dem Wasser getan?
Try that.
He dried it up, right?
Er hat es ausgetrocknet.
Okay, and he breaks open these gates, right?
Und er bricht diese Tore auf.
It says, I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of brass and cut in sunder the bars of iron. And I will give thee the treasures of darkness and hidden riches of secret places. What's that?
Was ist das in Vers 3?
It's a revelation,
Das ist
right?
die Offenbarung.
It's the revelation that's going to be the way of escape, right?
Das ist die Offenbarung, die dieser Ausweg sein wird.
If you accept that revelation, that's how you're going to escape,
Wenn du diese Offenbarung annimmst, wirst du entkommen.
right?
Richtig?
That's why it's combining these two things here together.
Deswegen kombiniert es diese zwei Dinge zusammen.
Go to Revelation chapter 3.
Gehen wir zur Offenbarung 3.
And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, These things saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David, he that openeth, and no man shutteth, and shutteth, and no man openeth. What's he doing?
Also Vers 7, was macht er?
Opening a gate,
Er
right?
öffnet ein Tor.
That's what he did in Babylon in conjunction with the rivers drying up,
Das
right?
hat er auch in Babylon getan im Zusammenhang mit diesem Austrocknen des Flusses.
He says, I know thy works, behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it, for thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. So if you give a witness, that's what that represents, a witness, right?
Wenn du ein Zeugnis gibst, weil das stellt es hier eben dar, ein
And you
Zeugnis,
keep his word and don't deny his name,
und sein Wort festhältst und seinen Namen nicht
he
verleugnest,
opens this door for you, right?
öffnet er den Weg, diese Tür für dich.
And that's your way of escape,
Das
right?
ist dein Ausweg.
Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not. Who is that?
Wer ist das?
That's these false prophets here, right?
Das sind diese falschen Propheten.
They say they are Jews, but do lie, because they don't have the Spirit in their heart,
Sie
right?
sagen, sie sind Juden, sind es aber nicht und lügen, weil sie haben den Geist nicht in ihrem Herzen.
Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, right? That this is this patience you got to have when you're giving your testimony, right?
Das ist diese Geduld, die du haben musst, wenn du dein Zeugnis gibst.
I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. That's the 7 last plagues, right?
Das sind die 7 letzten Plagen.
Okay, go to Revelation 12 and verse 5.
Gehen wir jetzt auf Offenbarung 12, Vers 5.
And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. That's always at the end,
Das
right?
ist immer am Ende.
What's she doing?
Was macht sie?
Fleeing
Sie flieht
into the wilderness,
in
right?
die Wüste.
Okay, so you can see you got all these things showing you that when you come to this point, right, it's this sign where you have to flee, right?
Man kann sehen, wenn man diese Dinge zusammenbringt, dass es immer dieser Punkt ist, dieses Zeichen, wo du fliehen sollst.
It's the end and it's also the beginning,
Es
right?
ist das Ende, aber es ist auch der Anfang.
Okay. So just like Lot was told to flee here because what was going to begin to fall?
Also wie Lot hier fliehen sollte, weil was sollte anfangen zu fallen?
Yeah, the plagues,
Die Plagen.
which would come here, typifying this what's happening here, right?
Das würde dann hier kommen und das schattet voraus, was dann hier stattfindet.
Because this end here typifies what's going to come at the end here,
Weil
right?
das Ende hier schattet voraus, was dort am Ende kommen wird.
Okay, right. So these patterns are always repeating, right?
Diese Muster wiederholen sich hier.
Okay, now go back to Luke 21,
Gehen wir jetzt zurück zu Lukas 21,
verse 25.
Vers 25.
It says, And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, men's heart failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. Right? So, speaking about, in fact, just turn in your Bibles to Luke 21.
Geht in euren Bibeln zu Lukas 21.
Takes you back to verse 20, right?
Bringt dich zurück zu Vers 20.
So we just read Luke 21.
Wir sind in Lukas 21.
We just read verse 28.
Wir haben gerade Vers 28 gelesen.
Right? It says, when these things begin to come to pass, then look up. It takes you right back to verse 20.
Und das führt dich dann hinunter, zurück zu Vers 20.
And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies.
Wenn ihr Jerusalem mit Armeen umlagert seht.
Okay, so we've all looked at this already. In one sense, it's at the beginning,
Wir haben
right?
uns das schon angeschaut. In einem Sinne ist es am Anfang.
But we read the quote, Sister White says, this sign was to be given 40 years at the destruction of Jerusalem,
Und
right?
wir haben das Zitat gelesen von Ellen White, wo sie sagt, dieses Zeichen sollte 40 Jahre später an der Zerstörung von Jerusalem gegeben
Okay,
werden.
this is your sign, right?
Das ist dein Zeichen.
So, verse 28,
Vers 28.
when these things begin to come to pass, then look up. That would be right here, right?
Und schaut auf, das wäre hier.
Look up because
Schaut auf, weil
your redemption draweth nigh, right?
weil sich deine Erlösung naht.
Telling you you're just about to be delivered,
Es
right?
sagt dir, dass du eben kurz davor stehst, befreit zu werden.
Okay. Okay, go back to the notes.
Gehen wir zurück zu den Notizen.
Yeah, in verse 26. in
Vers
Luke 21.
Lukas 21, Vers 6.
Men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory, right? Okay, so when you see this sign there, you know that you're just about to be delivered,
Wenn
right?
du dieses Zeichen hier siehst, dann weißt du, dass du kurz vor der Befreiung stehst.
Okay, jump down to verse 29.
Gehen wir jetzt zu Vers 29 hinunter.
And he spake to them a parable. So now he's just going to confirm this thought, right?
Jetzt wird diesen Gedanken einfach nochmal bestätigen.
Behold the fig tree and all the trees, when they now shoot forth. Where does it bring you to?
Wohin bringt dich das?
Speaking of the box.
Why does it bring you there, Marius?
Warum bringt es uns zum Anfang der kleinen
You have
Box?
those 3 steps. Blade here and
Yes, okay, that's correct.
Dort sind die 3 Schritte,
We're
also der
speaking about the
Halm,
fig tree.
Halm, die Ehre, der volle Korn in der Ehre, aber hier spricht es ja über den Feigenbaum.
No, not one more here. It was already at the end of the year.
the
But
end.
why the fig tree?
Warum der Feigenbaum?
It's coming to look at fruit, that's what I meant. It's at the end of the one more year. He's
Ah, okay, it's at the end of the year, and this is right at the end, and he comes to the tree and he's walking along, and what does he see on the fig tree?
Also das ist am Ende des einen weiteren Jahres, er kommt und geht zum Feigenbaum und was sieht er daran?
He sees these leaves,
Er
right?
sieht die Blätter.
So there should be fruit there,
Es
right?
sollte Frucht sein.
But there wasn't, so he cursed it,
Und
right?
da gab es keine, deswegen hat er ihn verflucht.
And it was marking the destruction of Jerusalem,
Das
right?
markierte die Zerstörung von
So
Jerusalem.
it's bringing to the same point in time,
Das
right?
bringt dich zum selben Zeitpunkt.
Now learn a parable of the fig tree. Points you to this illustration, right?
Es weist dich hier auf diese Darstellung hin.
When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. It takes you to Amos 8 and verse 8,
Das
right?
bringt dich zu Amos 8, Vers 8.
Because right here he's passing you by,
Weil
right?
hier führt er dich eben, hier zieht er an dir vorüber.
But when you get to Amos 8, He will not pass you by anymore. There's a basket of summer fruit there, right?
Wenn du zu Amos 8 kommst, dann wird er nicht mehr an dir vorüberziehen, denn da gibt es jetzt einen Korb mit Sommerfrüchten.
Verse 33.
Vers 33.
So likewise ye, when ye
From Luke to Matthew.
Oh, I did? Excuse me, sorry.
31.
Verse 31. Is this, yes, 31, thank you.
Also
Sorry.
wir sind in Lukas 21, Vers 31.
So likewise, when ye see these things come to pass, know ye that the kingdom of God is nigh at hand. Verily I say to you, this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. Okay, jump down to Matthew 24 underneath it.
Geht hinunter zu Matthäus 24.
Just repeats this thought.
Das wiederholt den Gedanken.
Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. It's even at the doors,
Das
right?
ist Vers 33. Das ist also gerade vor der Tür.
This is this point where Christ is trying to point us down to,
Das
right,
ist
right
dieser
here.
Punkt, auf den Christus uns hinweisen will. Das ist hier.
Okay, and it says in verse. No, in fact, just jump down under the next heading to Luke 21 again, verse 34.
Gehen wir hinunter zur nächsten Überschrift, Lukas 21, Vers 34.
So he's just adding thoughts now to this point,
Also
right?
er fügt jetzt noch Gedanken zu diesem Punkt hinzu.
It says, and take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and cares of this life, so that day come upon you unawares. For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch ye therefore, and pray always, that ye may be counted worthy to escape. Right?
Dass ihr als würdig erachtet werdet, zu entkommen.
Okay. And to be able to stand before the Son of Man. Right? So, last thoughts. Go to Matthew 24, verse 36.
Letzte Gedanken gehen wir zu Matthäus 24, Vers 36.
It says, but of that day and hour know no man, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark. Now when he entered into the ark, what happened?
Als er in die Arche ging, was geschah?
The door was closed.
Die
Right.
Tür hat sich verschlossen.
Bringing you right down to this point,
Bringt
right?
dich zu diesem Punkt.
I spoke about this, right? But this door right here says this point here, this closed door.
Wir haben
Right?
über diesen Punkt gesprochen, also diese geschlossene Tür.
It says, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Then two be in the field. How many?
Wie viele?
Which two?
Welche zwei?
Yeah, who are they?
Wer sind die zwei Gruppen?
Yeah, the Pharisee and the publican,
Der
right?
Pharisäer und der Zöllner.
And it'll be these two goats in Leviticus 26, 16, excuse me,
Das
sorry.
wären diese zwei Böcke in 3. Mose 16.
One will be this perfect offering, right? And the other one is going to get all the sin put upon it,
Der
right?
eine wird das vollkommene Opfer und auf den anderen werden all die Sünden gelegt.
Okay, so it says, then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken and the other left. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the goodman of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over all his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, he shall make him ruler over all his goods. And if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken. Who is this here?
Wer ist das hier? Vers 49.
Those that deliver Europe.
Sorry?
Those that deliver Europe. In the final text.
No, not those that deliver you up. Those that deliver you up, it says, when they deliver you up, many shall be. Who are these?
Also es sagt, wenn sie dich ausliefern, dann werden viele Anstoß nehmen. Und wer sind die hier?
It says there, they begin to eat and drink with the drunken,
Sie
right?
fangen an zu essen und trinken mit den Betrunkenen.
Because they say in his heart, oh, the Lord's not really coming,
Weil die sagen in ihrem Herzen, der Herr kommt nicht wirklich.
right? The Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and an hour that he is not aware of, and he shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth, right? So these are these two classes, the hypocrite and the one that stands fast.
Das sind diese zwei Klassen, der Heuchler und derjenige, der fest steht.
And we've made this point, if you fall away in this point, you will persecute your brethren.
Und wir haben
Right?
den Punkt schon gemacht, dass wenn du an diesem Punkt wegfällst, wirst du deine Geschwister verfolgen.
Okay, so there are tons of questions I have about these passages, right?
Es gibt jetzt viele Fragen, die ich über diese Abschnitte habe.
But that's neither here nor there, right?
Aber das tut nichts zur Sache.
We've got to remember that our thoughts are not God's thoughts,
Wir
right?
müssen daran denken, dass unsere Gedanken nicht Gottes Gedanken
Okay,
sind.
but what we do have is a very clear pattern, right?
Aber was wir haben, ist ein sehr klares Muster.
Okay, that Christ here is standing at the end,
Dass Christus hier am Ende steht,
right? But he's also marking the beginning.
aber er markiert auch den Anfang.
And he just begins to tell them the whole process over again of what's just been fulfilled here,
Und er
right?
fängt einfach an, den ganzen Prozess nochmal zu erklären, was gerade sich hier erfüllt hat.
Okay, and he points you down saying, this must come to pass first, this is not the end, right?
Dann weist er dich hier hin und er sagt, das muss zuerst kommen, das ist noch nicht das Ende.
Then he points you to this and tells those that endure to the end, the same shall be saved,
Dann
right?
weist er dich auf das hin und sagt, diejenigen, die bis zum Ende ausharren, werden gerettet werden.
Then he runs you down all the way, showing you the same what's just happened, but during the 7 last plagues,
Dann
right?
führt er dich den ganzen Weg hier und zeigt dir eigentlich dasselbe, was hier gerade geschehen ist, aber in den 7 letzten Plagen.
Because it's the end and also the
Weil es
beginning.
ist das Ende, aber auch der Anfang.
So therefore we know that you can take this and put it here, right?
Deswegen wissen wir, können wir das nehmen und hier rübersetzen.
So the sign to flee here at the beginning is, or would be at the end here, is here, right?
Das Zeichen, was hier am Ende wäre zu fliehen, wäre dann hier.
But the Lord is wanting to focus in right here on this birth, this final test,
Und der
right?
Herr möchte den Fokus hier hinlegen auf diese Geburt, auf diesen finalen Test.
Okay, and this is where a way of escape is going to be made for those that are faithful.
Und dort wird dann ein Ausweg geschaffen werden für diejenigen, die treu sind,
Okay, you need to flee.
wo man dann fliehen muss.
So, I have many thoughts. I don't profess to understand all things, but it's very clear that the Bible's giving us this understanding, right?
Ich habe viele Gedanken und gebe nicht vor, alles zu verstehen, aber es ist sehr klar, die Bibel hilft uns, das zu verstehen.
Okay, so we just need to trust in the Lord. And as we go forward, the things will become clearer for
Wir
us.
müssen
right?
einfach dem Herrn vertrauen und je mehr wir vorwärts gehen, desto klarer werden die Dinge werden.
Okay, shall we close with a...
Sollen wir abschließen mit einem Gebet?
David.
Dear Heavenly Father,
Lieber himmlischer Vater,
we thank you for this small study,
wir danken dir für dieses Morgenstudium
and we thank you that you want to show us the pattern that you set in Matthew 24.
und wir wir danken dir, dass du uns das Muster zeigen willst, was in Matthäus 24 ist.
We ask that you please help us to understand it and help us to go with the weight of evidence.
Wir bitten dich, dass du uns hilfst, es zu verstehen und dass wir mit der Beweislast vorwärts gehen.
And I pray that you'd help us to also to search for the answer to the remaining questions.
Und ich bete auch, dass du uns hilfst, dass wir nach Antworten zu den offenen Fragen suchen.
And I want to thank you that you always want to correct us and further our understanding in these topics.
Und ich möchte dir danken, dass du uns immer korrigierst und dass du uns immer mehr über diese Themen zeigst.
And I pray that you'd please bless us this day and help us to think about these things as we go about our daily things.
Und ich bete, dass du uns an diesem Tag segnest und uns hilfst, über diese Dinge nachzudenken, wenn wir unsere täglichen Arbeiten verrichten.
In Jesus' name.
In Jesu Namen. Amen.
Amen.